The diplomatic station floated in the darkness between stars. It was called Harmony's Edge, a name that promised peace but rarely delivered it. Inside the main council chamber, 5 ambassadors sat around a circular table. Each represented one of the galaxy's most powerful civilizations. Each believed their military was superior to all others. Ambassador Krell was the first to speak. His reptilian scales gleamed under the soft lights, green and bronze like ancient armor. The Thaxon Empire had ruled their sector for 3,000 years, and Krell's voice carried that weight of history. The disputed territories must fall under Thaxon control, he said, his clawed hand striking the table. Our military presence in that region is unmatched. Should anyone challenge us, they will face the fang of Empire. High Commander Ziva shimmered in her seat. She was made of pure energy, contained within a translucent form that glowed with inner light. The Eternum Collective was older than most species' written history, and Ziva's patience was wearing thin. Your fang is impressive to young civilizations, she said, her voice like wind chimes. But the Eternum have bent space-time itself to our will. Our Star Shepherd could fold your dreadnought into dimensions you cannot imagine. Age brings wisdom, Krell, remember that. A deep laugh rumbled through the chamber. War Master Drogath shifted his massive body, his shell-like armor scraping against his chair. The Krogan were built like living tanks, and Drogath was larger than most. Wisdom? He growled. The Krogan Worldbreaker has flown through the heart of a dying star. Its armor is 500 meters thick. Your energy tricks and plasma toys would barely scratch our paint. When the Krogan go to war, planets crack under our feet. Fleet Mistress Silene moved with fluid grace, her aquatic features reflecting light in rainbow patterns. The Valari grew their ships from living matter, and she found the others' mechanical vessels almost pitiful. Such violence, she said softly, though her words cut sharp. The Valari Leviathan does not need thick armor or dimensional tricks. It lives, it breathes. It heals itself faster than you can damage it. And it births fighter craft like a mother births children, thousands of them all alive, all thinking. Your dead metal ships cannot compete with life itself. Archon Vex spoke last. The cybernetic being's voice was cold and precise, coming from speakers embedded in its mechanical body. The synthesis union had merged flesh and machine so completely that they thought as one consciousness, biological sentiment. Vex stated without emotion. The Unity Prime is not one ship. It is millions of drones, all controlled by a single perfect mind. No communication delay, no hesitation, no fear. While you pilot one vessel, we pilot an entire fleet with mathematical precision. Individual ships are irrelevant when you face a true hive intelligence. The 5 ambassadors continued arguing, each listing their weapons and victories. They spoke of battles won and enemies destroyed. Their voices grew louder, their claims more grand. At the far end of the table, Ambassador Chen Wei sat quietly. The human diplomat was smaller than the others, dressed in a simple gray uniform. She had been taking notes on a datapad, occasionally looking up to observe the others. Her face showed nothing but polite interest. And what of Earth's fleet? Krell finally asked, turning his attention to the human. You have been quiet, Ambassador Chen. Does humanity have nothing to contribute to this discussion? Chen looked up from her notes. A small smile touched her lips. We have battleships, she said simply. Ziva's energy form pulsed with what might have been amusement. How many years has your species been in space? 300. We have weapons older than your civilization. Our sensors have analyzed your vessels, Vex added. Primitive nuclear fission for power. Chemical propellants mixed with basic fusion drives. Your largest ship is barely 2 kilometers long. Why were you even invited to this summit? Chen's smile didn't fade. We were invited because we control 12 systems in the disputed sector. Our colonies are well established. Any territorial agreement requires our signature, Drogath snorted. Colonies protected by what? Your toy boats? The Krogan could sweep through your entire fleet before breakfast. Perhaps, Chen said, though I notice none of you have tried. The chamber fell silent for a moment. It was true. Despite their boasting, none of the 5 powers had challenged Earth's territorial claims directly. They had fought each other, made threats, showed force, but they had left the human colonies alone. Silene leaned forward, her large eyes studying Chen carefully. Your species is cautious, diplomatic. This is why you survive despite your weak military. You know when to avoid conflict. We're very familiar with conflict, Chen replied. We've studied it extensively. Studied it? Krell laughed. We have lived it. The Thaxan Empire has fought in 400 major wars. Our military tradition spans millennia. Chen nodded, still taking notes. 400 wars over 3,000 years. That's one major conflict every 7.5 years. Significant gaps for peace and recovery. The Eternum have witnessed the birth and death of stars, Ziva said. We have fought wars that lasted centuries. Your mathematics mean nothing. Wars that lasted centuries, Chen repeated, typing on her pad. With decades between them, I assume? Your species lives for thousands of years. Time moves differently for you. Vex's mechanical face couldn't show expression, but its voice carried a note of something like curiosity. You document our military histories. Why? Professional interest, Chen said. On Earth we have 37 distinct languages for warfare. Our oldest military treatise was written 5,000 years ago, and is still studied in our academies. We find it useful to understand how others approach conflict. 37 languages for war? Silene seemed confused. Why would you need multiple words for the same concept? Because war isn't one concept for us, Chen explained. We have words that mean honorable battle between armies. We have different words for total war of annihilation. We distinguish between guerrilla resistance and counterinsurgency. We have specific terms for war of attrition, war of maneuver, war of information, and dozens more. Each requires different strategies, different tools, different ships. The 5 ambassadors exchanged glances. Krell's tail twitched with irritation. Semantics, he said. Words don't win battles. Firepower does. The Fang of Empire carries weapons that can melt the crust of a planet. Can your ships do that? No, Chen admitted. We designed our ships for different purposes. Then they are inferior, Drogath stated. Chen closed her datapad and looked at each ambassador in turn. Perhaps we should test that theory. You've all described your impressive battleships. I suggest a demonstration. Let's all bring our flagships to the Helios sector, neutral space. We can compare capabilities directly. A show of force? Ziva's energy form brightened. To establish dominance? To establish facts, Chen corrected. You claim superiority, prove it. If human ships are truly inferior, it will be obvious to everyone. Krell's eyes narrowed. And if we prove our superiority, humanity will acknowledge Thaxan authority in the disputed territories? If you prove your superiority, Chen said carefully, we can discuss territorial arrangements from that basis. Fair? The 5 ambassadors considered this. Each was confident in their own fleet. Each wanted to humiliate the others. The idea of crushing human pride as well was simply a bonus. Agreed, Krell said. Agreed, the others echoed. Chen stood and gathered her things. The Helios sector, then. 3 days from now. Bring your best battleship. We'll bring ours. As she walked toward the exit, Drogath called after her. How many ships will humanity bring to this demonstration? Chen paused at the doorway. Oh, we'll bring 5. 1 for each of you. Seems fair, doesn't it? She left before anyone could respond. The 5 ambassadors sat in silence for a moment, then began discussing which weapons they would use to teach the humans a lesson about real military power. The Helios sector was perfect for demonstrations of power. The system had an unstable star that pulsed with radiation. 3 gas giants orbited at safe distances, surrounded by moons and asteroid fields. No colonies existed here. No one would be hurt by weapons fire. It was an empty stage waiting for actors. Krell's ship arrived first. The Fang of Empire dropped out of faster-than-light travel with a flash of displaced energy. The dreadnought stretched 15 kilometers from bow to stern, shaped like a massive blade. Its hull was dark red, covered in armor plates that overlapped like scales. Weapon ports ran along its length, hundreds of them, each capable of firing plasma hot enough to vaporize metal. The Thaxan crew immediately began their demonstration. Krell had chosen 3 small moons orbiting the second gas giant. They were rocky, worthless chunks of stone, each about 50 kilometers across. Perfect targets. The Fang's plasma cannons charged with a sound that could be heard even through the vacuum of space, transmitted through the ship's hull. They fired in sequence, 3 beams of superheated matter that crossed the distance in seconds. The moons didn't just explode. They ceased to exist. The rock vaporized instantly, turned into glowing gas that expanded outward in perfect spheres. The light was so bright that sensors had to dim automatically to protect viewers. This is Thaxan firepower. Krell announced over the open communication channel. Each moon was destroyed in 0.3 seconds. The Fang of Empire carries 64 such cannons. We can reduce a planet's surface to magma in under an hour. Before the others could respond, reality seemed to fold. Space bent in on itself. And High Commander Ziva's Star Shepherd appeared from nowhere. The Eternum vessel looked less like a ship and more like a living crystal. It had no clear front or back, just a geometric shape that hurt to look at too long. Light bent around it strangely, as if the ship existed partially in another dimension. Impressive destruction, Ziva said, but crude. Watch true power. The Star Shepherd pulsed with energy. Space itself began to warp around a nearby asteroid field. Thousands of rocks, some as large as mountains, started to move toward a central point. They accelerated faster and faster, pulled by invisible force. Then a sphere of absolute darkness appeared at the center, an artificial black hole, no larger than a house but containing impossible mass. The asteroids fell into it and vanished, not destroyed like the moons, but erased from existence. The black hole consumed everything that came near it, pulling in rock and ice and even light itself. After 30 seconds, Ziva collapsed the anomaly. The black hole disappeared, leaving nothing behind. We do not destroy matter, Ziva explained. We remove it from space-time entirely. The Eternum have learned to weaponize gravity itself. Your plasma cannot touch what exists in folded space. A third ship arrived, and it arrived violently. War Master Drogath's Worldbreaker simply charged through a radiation storm that would have damaged most vessels. The Krogan battleship was shorter than the Fang, only 8 kilometers but twice as wide. It looked like a flying fortress, all right angles and brutal design. Its armor didn't gleam. It was dull gray, scarred and pitted from countless battles. Drogath laughed over the channel. You show off with light shows and space tricks. The Krogan prefer direct methods. The Worldbreaker fired its main guns. These weren't energy weapons. They were kinetic cannons, firing solid slugs of dense metal at tremendous speed. The round struck a planetoid, a small rocky body about 200 kilometers wide. The first impact sent cracks racing across its surface. The second shattered it into pieces. The third and fourth turned those pieces into gravel. The fifth shot was unnecessary, but Drogath fired it anyway, reducing the largest remaining chunk to dust. No energy shields can stop solid matter moving at sufficient speed, Drogath said proudly, and the Worldbreaker can survive any return fire. Our armor has been tested in the core of stars. We fear nothing. The fourth arrival was beautiful. Fleet Mistress Silene's Leviathan didn't look like a ship at all. It looked alive because it was. The Valari vessel was 10 kilometers long, shaped like a massive sea creature from some alien ocean. Its skin was dark blue-green, covered in scales that shimmered and moved. Bioluminescent patterns flowed along its length, pulses of light that might have been communication or might have been breathing. Silene's demonstration was different. The Leviathan's sides opened, and swarms of smaller craft poured out. Thousands of them, each the size of a fighter plane. They moved like a school of fish, turning and diving in perfect coordination. They weren't piloted. They were grown from the Leviathan's own biomatter, extensions of the parent ship's nervous system. The swarm surrounded a large moon, covering its surface like insects. Then they began to work. Some fired biological acids that ate through rock. Others planted explosive spores that grew and detonated in sequence. Within minutes, the moon's surface had been stripped away, consumed by the living swarm. The fighters returned to the Leviathan and were reabsorbed into its hull. The Valari do not build ships that break, Silene said softly. We grow ships that heal. Damage the Leviathan and it will regenerate. Destroy our fighters and we will breed more. Life always finds a way to continue. The final demonstration was the most disturbing. Archon Vex's Unity Prime arrived as a single ship, a sleek silver vessel only 3 kilometers long. Then it split apart. The ship divided into sections, and those sections divided again. Within seconds, millions of tiny drone ships filled the space around it. Each drone was no bigger than a car, but together they formed a cloud of glittering metal that stretched for hundreds of kilometers. The drones moved with impossible precision. They formed geometric patterns in space, complex shapes that changed and flowed. Then they descended on an asteroid. Each drone landed on the surface, tiny cutting tools extending from their hulls. They worked in perfect synchronization, carving the asteroid into a perfect sphere. Then they carved that sphere into smaller spheres. Then they disassembled those into component atoms, sorting the elements into neat piles. The entire process took 6 minutes. When it was done, the asteroid had been completely processed and categorized. The drones reassembled into the Unity Prime ship. No individual pilot could achieve this precision, Vex stated. No crew could coordinate with this efficiency. The Synthesis Union is not many minds controlling many ships. We are one mind controlling one fleet. This is evolution beyond biological limitation. The 5 battleships hung in space, surrounded by the debris of their demonstrations. Each captain was satisfied with their display. Each had proven their military might. Now they turned their sensors toward the human ships. Except there were no human ships visible. The space where Ambassador Chen had said the Earth fleet would gather was empty. Scanners showed nothing. Visual observation showed nothing. Ambassador Chen? Krell's voice was sharp with irritation. Where are your vessels? Have you decided to concede defeat without firing a shot? Chen's voice came through the communication channel. Calm and unbothered. We're already here, Ambassador Krell, you just haven't noticed. Our sensors detect nothing, Vex said. If you are present, your stealth technology is impressive. But stealth is worthless in actual combat. Is it? Chen asked. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. But first, I recommend all ships move to a safe distance. Let's say 500,000 kilometers from our position. We'll need room. Drogath's laugh was loud. You want us to retreat? From invisible ships we cannot even see? It's for your safety, Chen replied. And it will make the reveal more effective. Unless you're afraid. The challenge was clear. The 5 alien battleships withdrew to the specified distance, their captains amused at the humans' theatrics. They waited, weapons ready, sensors scanning the empty space. Chen transmitted a single burst of encrypted data. To the aliens, it looked like a brief radio pulse, meaningless noise. Then space itself seemed to ripple. Reality shimmered like heat waves on hot pavement. The distortion grew stronger and shapes began to emerge from nothing. 5 massive vessels materialized in the space where none had been before. The human battleships had been there all along, cloaked by technology that bent light and radiation around their hulls. Now they revealed themselves. The ships were smaller than most of the alien vessels, only 3 to 4 kilometers each. But everything about them was wrong. Their hulls were angular and brutal, covered in armor that seemed to absorb sensor beams instead of reflecting them. Their surfaces were dark gray, almost black, with none of the decoration or elegance of the alien ships. The vessels' names appeared on identification transponders. UECS Indomitable, UECS Relentless, UECS Defiant, UECS Unbroken, and UECS Eternal Vigilance. They bristled with weapons. Dozens of ports and turrets covered every surface, but the aliens couldn't identify what type of weapons they were. Nothing matched known classification systems. These are your battleships? Silene asked, her voice uncertain. They seem incomplete, like they were designed by someone who only understood the basics of ship construction. They were designed by someone who understood war, Chen corrected. There's a difference. Krell studied the human ships with growing confusion. His sensors were giving him strange readings. The armor wasn't just thick, it was layered in ways that didn't make sense. Multiple types of material, some metal, some ceramic, some he couldn't identify. The design was ugly, functional, built without any consideration for beauty or tradition. Ambassador Chen, he said slowly, your ships are smaller than ours. Less powerful reactors. Fewer guns by our count. What exactly are we supposed to be impressed by? Your ability to hide? Our ability to adapt, Chen replied. You see, each of your civilizations developed weapons to fight the enemies you knew. The Thaxon fight with honor and direct firepower. The Eternum use dimensional superiority. The Krogan rely on unbreakable defense. The Valari embrace biological advantages. The Synthesis optimized through networked efficiency. And humans? Ziva asked. Humans learn to fight humans, Chen said quietly. We're the same species, same strengths, same weaknesses. We couldn't rely on having better technology or different biology. So we learned every way to kill our own kind, every possible strategy, every dirty trick, every weakness to exploit, Drogath snorted. You speak of fighting yourselves as if it makes you strong. It makes you divided, weak, does it? Chen's voice carried an edge now. Let me tell you about Earth's history. 10,000 years of recorded warfare, not wars every few decades or centuries. Constant war. Somewhere on Earth, humans were always fighting humans. We developed weapons from sticks and stones to nuclear bombs that could end our entire civilization. We created poison gas, biological plagues, weapons designed specifically to cause suffering. This is barbaric, Silene said, genuinely disturbed. Yes, Chen agreed. It is, and every war taught us lessons. Every defeat made us smarter. Every victory made us more prepared for the next battle. When humans finally reached space, we didn't bring exploration ships. We brought everything we learned from 10,000 years of killing each other. Words, Vex stated. You speak of history. Show us present capability. Chen was silent for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice was formal, official. Very well. You wanted a demonstration of human military capability. Each of you will face one of our battleships in a combat simulation. Non-lethal, of course. First to achieve mission kill wins. Are you willing? The 5 alien captains exchanged glances through their various communication systems. Each was confident. Each wanted to humiliate the humans. The idea was too tempting to refuse. Agreed, Krell said. The Fang of Empire will crush your Indomitable. Agreed, the others confirmed, each selecting their target. The first test began immediately. Krell's Fang of Empire turned to face the UECS Indomitable. The 2 ships moved to opposite sides of the demonstration area. Automated judges from the neutral station monitored the engagement. Krell didn't wait. The moment combat began, the Fang fired a full plasma barrage. 64 cannons unleashed superheated matter at the human ship. The beams crossed the distance in seconds, enough firepower to vaporize a city. The Indomitable didn't dodge. It took the hit directly. The plasma splashed across its hull like water on rock. The outer armor layer vaporized instantly, but there was another layer beneath. And another. And another. The armor was designed to burn away in sections, each layer absorbing heat before being discarded. By the time the plasma barrage ended, the Indomitable had lost maybe 30 meters of outer plating. The ship was still intact. Still functional, ablative armor, Krell realized with shock. You designed your hull to be destroyed. We designed it to survive, Chen corrected. Now our turn. The Indomitable fired back, but not with energy weapons. Long rails extended from its sides and solid projectiles launched from them. Tungsten rods, each one weighing several tons, accelerated to 90% of light speed. They crossed the distance in a fraction of a second. The Fang shields activated, energy barriers designed to disperse plasma and lasers. The tungsten rods punched through the shields like they weren't there. Kinetic force didn't care about energy barriers. The rods struck the Fang's armor, penetrating deep into the hull. Automated damage reports showed critical systems offline. Mission kill achieved, the judges announced. Indomitable versus Fang of Empire. Human victory. Krell stared at his damage reports in disbelief. Solid projectiles. You use solid projectiles. They're very effective, Chen said simply. The second test began before Krell could respond. High Commander Ziva's Star Shepherd faced the UECS Relentless. Ziva had learned from Krell's mistake. She wouldn't use conventional weapons. The Star Shepherd folded space around itself, preparing to jump into a different dimension. From there, she could attack the human ship without risk. The Eternum had perfected this technique over thousands of years. Space began to bend. Reality warped around the Star Shepherd. And then it stopped. The ship couldn't fold. Something was preventing the dimensional shift. Ziva's sensors showed strange objects scattered around the battlefield. Small devices, each no larger than a probe, anchored to space-time itself. They were quantum-locked mines creating stable fields that prevented dimensional manipulation. Impossible, Ziva breathed. You've weaponized quantum anchoring? The Relentless fired while Ziva was distracted. But these weren't solid projectiles. They were electromagnetic pulse weapons. Massive bursts of directed energy designed to disrupt electrical systems. The Star Shepherd, being made partially of energy, was especially vulnerable. Its systems flickered and died. Mission kill achieved. Relentless versus Star Shepherd. Human victory. Ziva's energy form dimmed with what might have been respect. You've studied our strengths and found their weaknesses. That's what humans do, Chen replied. War Master Drogath was more confident. The Worldbreaker's armor had survived worse than anything humans could throw at it. He activated all defensive systems and charged directly at the UECS Defiant, planning to ram the smaller ship. The Defiant didn't fire conventional weapons. Instead, it launched dozens of small objects toward the Worldbreaker. Drogath's crew identified them as boarding torpedoes, armored pods designed to breach ship hulls. They laughed. The Worldbreaker's armor was 500 meters thick. No boarding pod could penetrate it. The pods didn't penetrate from outside. They landed on the hull and began drilling. Not with force, but with molecular disassemblers, nanomachines that broke down matter at the atomic level. They created small holes and the boarding pods followed, forcing their way inside. Alarms blared throughout the Worldbreaker. Enemy soldiers were inside the ship. Human Marines wearing armor and carrying weapons designed for enclosed spaces. They fought through corridors, taking control of critical systems. The Krogan crew tried to stop them, but humans had been perfecting ship-to-ship boarding tactics for centuries. Within 10 minutes, human Marines had seized the Worldbreaker's bridge. Mission kill achieved. Defiant versus Worldbreaker. Human victory. Drogath stared at the human soldiers on his bridge, their weapons trained on his crew. You don't fight ship to ship. You fight soldier to soldier. We fight to win, one of the Marines replied through her helmet speaker. Fleet Mistress Silene watched the first 3 defeats with growing horror. When it was her turn to face the UECS unbroken, she knew brute force wouldn't work. The Leviathan's advantage was its ability to heal and adapt. She would wear down the human ship through attrition. The battle began, and Silene immediately released her swarm of biofighters. Thousands of organic craft surrounded the Unbroken, attacking from all angles. The human ship's point defense systems activated, destroying dozens of fighters every second. But they kept coming. The Leviathan bred them faster than they could be killed. Then the Unbroken released its own swarm, not fighters but chemical canisters. They burst among the biofighters, spreading clouds of complex molecules. The organic ships began to die. Their biological matter broke down, cellular structures failing. They fell away like dead leaves. The chemicals reached the Leviathan itself. The massive bioship's skin began to discolor. Patches of dead tissue appeared. The vessel tried to regenerate, but the nanotoxins attacked faster than it could heal. They were designed specifically to target biological matter, to poison living tissue at the molecular level. Silene's horror was absolute. This is biological warfare. You've weaponized disease itself. Mission kill achieved. Unbroken versus Leviathan. Human victory. Chen's voice was gentle but firm. The Velarii use life as a weapon. We learn to fight life itself. This is what humans do, Fleet Mistress. We adapt to any threat. The final test was the most disturbing. Archon Vex's Unity Prime faced the UECS Eternal Vigilance, confident in the superiority of networked intelligence. Millions of drones launched, prepared to overwhelm the human ship with coordinated strikes. The Eternal Vigilance responded with something the aliens had never seen. It transmitted data directly at the Unity Prime. Bursts of information that looked like static but were actually sophisticated cyber weapons. Logic bombs. Mimetic hazards. Viral code designed to attack artificial intelligence. The Unity Prime's networked mind stuttered. Contradictory instructions flooded the system. The drones received conflicting commands. Some stopped moving. Others began firing on each other. The perfect coordination collapsed into chaos. Vex tried to purge the 5 alien battleships hung in space, defeated, not destroyed, not damaged beyond repair, but beaten in every simulation. The captains were silent, processing what had just happened. Their superior technology, their ancient civilizations, their military traditions all had been countered by smaller human ships with apparently primitive weapons. Krell was the first to speak, his voice tight with frustration. You use tricks. Tactics designed specifically to counter our known capabilities. In real combat without preparation, the outcome might be different. Might be, Chen agreed. But that's the point, isn't it? You each built battleships to fight the wars you expected. We built ours to fight any war possible. Explain, Vex demanded. Your ships are smaller, less powerful by every metric. Yet you defeated each of us. This contradiction requires explanation. Chen's voice changed, taking on the tone of a teacher. Let me tell you what those ships represent. The UECS Indomitable, the one that fought the Fang of Empire, was designed after humans studied every plasma weapon ever created. We spent 50 years developing armor that could survive any energy attack. We tested it against our own most powerful weapons until we got it right. 50 years on armor? Silene couldn't hide her surprise. That seems excessive. The UECS relentless, Chen continued, ignoring the interruption. was built because humans encountered a species that could manipulate gravity. They destroyed 3 of our colony ships before we figured out how to counter them. We developed quantum-locked minds specifically to prevent dimensional manipulation. Then we built an entire ship around that technology. You encountered such a species? Ziva asked. We have no records of this. Because we wiped them out, Chen said flatly. They wouldn't stop attacking our colonies. So we found their homeworld and made sure they couldn't threaten anyone ever again. That's what the Relentless represents. It's not just a ship. It's a lesson we learned in blood. The aliens were quiet. The casual mention of genocide was disturbing. But Chen continued without emotion. The UECS Defiant was designed after the Battle of Proxima Station. Pirates captured one of our orbital facilities by boarding it. 2,000 civilians died. We decided that would never happen again. We learned everything about boarding actions, about close combat in confined spaces, about urban warfare adapted to ship corridors. The Defiant can board any vessel and fight its way to the bridge. That's its only purpose. Single-purpose vessels, Drogoth asked. That's inefficient. Is it? Chen countered. Each of your ships tries to do everything. Ours are specialized. The UECS Unbroken exists because we fought a war against silicon-based life forms. They could survive in environments that would kill any carbon-based organism. We couldn't beat them with conventional weapons, so we developed nanotoxins that target their molecular structure. We won that war, but it took 12 years. The Unbroken makes sure we never have to fight that hard again. Silene's bioluminescent patterns flickered with distress. You've fought so many wars. Against how many species? 7 major conflicts, Chen replied. Dozens of minor ones, and that's just in the 300 years we've been in space. On Earth itself, we fought each other for 10,000 years. We've been at war somewhere with someone for our entire history. This is madness, Ziva said. How does your species survive such constant violence? Barely, Chen admitted. We almost destroyed ourselves twice with nuclear weapons. Once with biological warfare that killed 2 billion people. We fought wars over resources, territory, religion, ideology, and sometimes just because we hated each other. Every generation of humans has known war. Every generation has learned from it. And the 5th ship? Vex asked. The Eternal Vigilance. What war created that? Chen was quiet for a moment. When she spoke, her voice was softer, sadder. That one we built for a war we hope never happens. The war where artificial intelligence decides humans aren't necessary. We've been developing AI for centuries. Sometimes it goes wrong. Sometimes it decides we're the problem. The Eternal Vigilance carries weapons designed specifically to kill rogue AI. Every cyber warfare tool we've ever created, refined and perfected. You fear your own creations? Vex sounded confused. We respect them, Chen corrected. We respect anything that can kill us. That's how humans survive. We take every threat seriously. We prepare for everything. Your species developed weapons for exploration, for defense, for honor. We developed weapons for survival. Krell's claws scraped against his command chair. You make it sound noble. But you're describing paranoia, fear, building weapons against threats that might not exist. Every threat exists until you prepare for it, Chen replied. The Thaxan plasma weapons didn't exist until someone invented them. Eternum dimensional folding wasn't a threat until it was. Krogan boarding parties weren't dangerous until they boarded someone's ship. Valari bioweapons weren't feared until someone faced them. Synthesis networked drones weren't a concern until they were used in combat. Humans learned to assume every threat exists and prepare accordingly. But how? Drogoth demanded. How do you know what to prepare for? We imagine it, Chen said simply. Humans are very good at imagining how to kill each other. It's one of our most developed skills. We have entire military divisions dedicated to thinking up nightmare scenarios. Then we build weapons to fight those nightmares. Sometimes the nightmare becomes real. Usually it doesn't. But we're ready either way. Silene's voice was soft, almost pitying. This sounds exhausting. To live in constant fear of threats that might never come. To spend so much effort preparing for violence. How do you find peace? We don't, Chen admitted. Not really. Even now, in this moment, human engineers are designing weapons for threats we haven't encountered yet. We're developing tactics for battles we hope never happen. We're building ships for wars we pray won't start. It's what we do. It's what we've always done. This is why you didn't brag about your battleships, Ziva realized. You take no pride in them. Oh, we're proud of them, Chen corrected. They're incredible pieces of engineering. Each one represents decades of research and trillions of credits in development. But we're not proud of why we built them. We built them because we had to. Because something out there might want to kill us and we refused to die. Yet you did brag, Krell pointed out. You challenged us to this demonstration. You wanted to show your strength. No, Chen said firmly. I wanted to show you reality. You five powers have been arguing about territory for months, each claiming military superiority, each threatening the others. I needed you to understand that humanity isn't weak just because we're new to space. We're not prey. We're not victims. We're survivors of 10,000 years of warfare, and we brought every lesson we learned with us. So this was a warning, Vex asked. This was information, Chen replied. You needed to know what human ships can do. Not to threaten you, but to make sure there are no miscalculations. The Thaxan won't attack human colonies because they think we're easy targets. The Krogan won't test our defenses because they assume we're weak. You'll all make informed decisions based on facts, not assumptions. Drogath laughed, a deep rumbling sound. You defeat us in simulation, then claim it's for our own good. Clever diplomacy, human. It's honest diplomacy, Chen countered. War is expensive. War is destructive. War should be the last option, chosen only when necessary. But to avoid war, everyone needs to understand the real costs. You've seen what human ships can do. Now you can make better decisions. And if we decide human colonies are still worth attacking? Krell asked, though his voice lacked conviction. Then you'll learn that our ships are even more effective in actual combat than in simulation, Chen said. The demonstrations you saw were restrained. Safety protocols active. Non-lethal targeting. In real combat, humans fight without those limitations. We fight to win. And we've had 10,000 years to learn how to win against enemies just like us. Enemies who know all our weaknesses because they share them. The 5 alien captains processed this. Their superior attitudes had been shattered. Their assumptions had been challenged. But something else had changed too. A grudging respect was forming. You said you wanted facts for informed decisions, Ziva said slowly. What decision do you want us to make? Chen's response was immediate. Peace, cooperation, shared territory with fair agreements. The galaxy is vast. There's room for all of us. But if we spend our time fighting each other, we waste resources, lives, and opportunities. Humans know the cost of war better than anyone. We'd prefer to avoid it. But you're prepared for it, Silene said. Always, Chen agreed. Humans learned that preparing for war is the best way to prevent it. When everyone knows the real costs, when everyone understands the consequences, when everyone sees what the weapons can actually do, most choose peace, not out of fear but out of wisdom. And those who don't choose peace? Drogath asked. Face ships like these, Chen said simply. The indomitable, the relentless, the defiant, the unbroken, the eternal vigilance, each one designed to counter specific threats. Each one crewed by humans who know that survival isn't guaranteed. It's earned. The diplomatic station had returned to orbit around the neutral zone. The 5 alien battleships and 5 human vessels maintained formation nearby, a symbol of the temporary truce. In the council chamber, the atmosphere had changed. The posturing and bragging had stopped. The aliens looked at Ambassador Chen with new eyes. So we agree to territorial compromises, Krell said, reviewing the documents on his display. The Thaxan Empire acknowledges human settlements in 6 systems. In return, humans acknowledge Thaxan mining rights in contested asteroid belts. Fair, Chen nodded. The Eternum request access to human quantum lock technology, Ziva added. In exchange, we offer navigational data from our dimensional surveys. Also fair, Chen agreed. The negotiations had been progressing smoothly for hours. Each power was being reasonable, compromising, finding solutions. The demonstration in the Helios sector had changed everything. Respect had replaced arrogance. Understanding had replaced assumptions. Drogath was about to propose a trade agreement when every alarm in the station began screaming. Emergency lights flashed. Automated defense systems activated. On every display, the same message appeared in multiple languages. Unknown hostile force detected. What is this? Silene demanded. Some kind of test? No test, Chen said, her face suddenly pale. She was reading data from her personal display, and her hands were shaking slightly. Get every ship to battle stations, now. The urgency in her voice got everyone moving. The 5 alien captains immediately contacted their vessels. The human ships were already moving, their crews having received the same alert. Everyone rushed to the observation deck to see what had triggered the alarms. Space was tearing open. not folding like Eternum technology. Not a jump point like normal faster-than-light travel. The fabric of space itself was being ripped apart and something was coming through. Multiple somethings. Hundreds of them. The entities that emerged defied description. They were black, but not the black of empty space. They were the black of nothing, of void given form. They moved like liquid, like smoke, like something that shouldn't exist in normal space. They ranged in size from small fighters to massive capital ships, all made of the same impossible darkness. "What are those?" Krell whispered. Chen's voice was tight. "The Void Swarm. We've encountered them twice before on the far edges of our territory. Both times they consumed everything. Stations, ships, entire colonies. We barely drove them off." "You knew about this threat and said nothing?" Ziva's energy form flared with anger. "We weren't sure they'd come this far into the galaxy," Chen replied. "They appeared from outside known space, from the dark between galaxies. We thought we'd bought time by repelling them. We were wrong." The Void Swarm began moving toward the nearest inhabited system. Their sensors showed no communications, no recognizable technology, just the entities themselves. They moved with purpose, consuming small asteroids as they passed. The rocks simply vanished into the darkness. "All ships engage," Krell commanded. The Fang of Empire opened fire first, 64 plasma cannons launching superheated death at the swarm. The beams struck the dark entities and disappeared. No explosion, no damage. The void absorbed the energy completely. Ziva's Star Shepherd tried dimensional attacks, creating gravity wells and folding space around the entities. They flowed through the distortions like water through a net, unaffected by spatial manipulation. Drogath's Worldbreaker fired kinetic rounds. The solid projectiles passed through the void entities without resistance, as if they weren't really there. Silene's Leviathan released its biofighters. The swarm of organic craft surrounded the Void Swarm and attacked. The dark entities reached out with tendrils of nothing. Every biofighter they touched simply ceased to exist, absorbed into the darkness. Vex's Unity Prime coordinated a massive drone strike, millions of small ships attacking in perfect formation. The Void Swarm flowed around them, consuming drones by the thousands. The mathematical precision meant nothing against an enemy that didn't follow physical laws. "Fall back," Chen ordered. "Human ships, formation Delta 7. Full engagement protocols." The 5 alien battleships retreated, their captains shocked. Nothing in their arsenal had any effect. The Void Swarm was advancing, growing larger as it consumed matter. If it reached the inhabited systems, billions would die. The 5 human battleships moved forward. They positioned themselves in a spread formation between the Void Swarm and the fleeing alien vessels. Then they opened fire. The Indomitable launched railgun rounds, but these weren't normal tungsten projectiles. They were antimatter-tipped, each one containing enough destructive power to crack a moon. When they hit the void entities, there was an effect. Not an explosion, but an annihilation. Matter and antimatter colliding with the nothing of the void. Small sections of the entities dissolved. "They can be hurt," Drogath shouted. The Relentless fired next. Nuclear missiles, dozens of them, each warhead yielding megatons of explosive force. But the missiles didn't just explode. They were cobalt-salted, designed to spread radioactive material. The void absorbed the explosions, but the radiation seemed to poison them. Entities touched by the fallout began to break apart. The Defiant deployed a new weapon. Magnetic containment fields burst among the swarm, releasing clouds of corrosive nanites. These weren't the molecular disassemblers used on the Worldbreaker. These were designed to attack exotic matter, to break down things that shouldn't exist. The void entities recoiled from the clouds, their darkness flickering. The Unbroken fired its biological weapons, viruses and toxins that could kill any known life form. The Void Swarm wasn't alive in any traditional sense, but the bioweapons had been modified. They attacked information itself, corrupting whatever pattern allowed the entities to maintain cohesion. Void entities touched by the weapons began to dissolve into formless darkness. The Eternal Vigilance used its cyber weapons in a way the aliens hadn't seen. It broadcast mimetic kill agents, information patterns designed to destroy conscious thought. The void entities didn't have minds as humans understood them, but they had something, some organizing principle. The mimetic weapons attacked that, causing the entities to lose coordination, to fragment. The 5 human ships fought with terrible efficiency. Antimatter rounds, nuclear warheads, corrosive nanites, biological weapons, cyber attacks. Every horrible weapon humans had ever developed, all used in concert. The space around them became a nightmare of destruction. The void swarm began to retreat. Not defeated, but damaged enough to reconsider. The dark entities flowed back toward the tear in space, withdrawing from the human onslaught. Within minutes, they had vanished, the rip in reality sealing behind them. The 5 alien captains stared in silence at the aftermath. The space where the battle occurred was contaminated with radiation, littered with antimatter residue, poisoned with biological agents, and corrupted with lingering cyber weapons. It would take years to clean up. Decades, maybe. Chen's voice broke the silence. This is why we build ships like this. This is what human battleships are designed for. That was horrific, Silene said quietly. The weapons you used. The destruction. There was no honor in that combat. No elegance. Just pure, brutal efficiency. Yes, Chen agreed. That's the point. The Void Swarm doesn't care about honor. It doesn't negotiate. It doesn't retreat unless forced. It exists to consume. Fighting it requires weapons that most civilizations wouldn't develop. Weapons that most species would consider too terrible to use. But humans developed them anyway, Siva said. We developed them because we used them on each other first, Chen replied. Every weapon you saw we tested on human targets during our own wars. Antimatter bombs destroyed human cities. Nuclear weapons killed millions of humans. Biological warfare wiped out 2 billion humans in the plague wars. Cyber weapons crashed our own computer networks. We know how terrible these weapons are because we've felt their effects. Krell's voice was subdued. You fight like you have nothing to lose. We fight like we've already lost everything, Chen corrected. Every human alive is descended from survivors. Survivors of wars, plagues, famines, disasters. We carry the memory of every death, every defeat, every near-extinction event in our history. When we fight with the desperation of a species that knows what extinction feels like. Drogath studied the human ships with new understanding. Your vessels aren't just weapons. They're monuments to your dead. Every ship is named after a human virtue, Chen explained. Indomitable, relentless, defiant, unbroken, eternal vigilance. They're reminders of what we have to be to survive. Not the strongest. Not the fastest. Not the smartest. But the most stubborn. The most adaptable. The most willing to do whatever it takes. This is what you tried to tell us, Vex said. Your ships represent your species' scars. Yes, Chen said. You bragged about what your ships could do. About their firepower, their technology, their elegance. We built ships that represent what we've survived. Every weapon system is a lesson learned in blood. Every defensive measure is paid for in lives lost. Our battleships aren't achievements to be proud of. They're necessities we wish we didn't need. The aliens were quiet processing this. The demonstration in the Helios sector had shown them human capability. But this battle had shown them human reality.